Choosing to build a subscriber model and place the customer at the centre is the first major step. But how is a product or service best priced? It might sound like a simple question, but Simon Kucher and Partners Senior Director Jason Carley says pricing is best thought of as a process. So what are some of the speed bumps to convincing customers to become subscribers? And why is there no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach? He spoke to MBR's Nathan Smith.
You're here to discuss the future of subscriptions, which is essentially the future of the world, based on some of the information. Why are subscriptions the wave of the future?
We're seeing an increasing move from products to a service-type business. People want to have relationships with the companies that they work with, the companies that they buy from. We see companies recognize that they're not going to have a transactional relationship with customers anymore, and they need to deliver value continuously. That lends itself a lot more easily to a subscription type model, where you're both committing to a much longer term relationship rather than buy now, think about them again in 12, 24, 36 months time. So it's much more this ongoing relationship of delivering value and receiving value lends itself very nicely to a subscription business.
The way you approach this is coming from the pricing models, and there are many different kinds, I imagine. But why is pricing power the core locus of this new wave?
Yeah. So pricing power is the ability of a company to extract the value that it delivers in the form of pricing. So we would say that any company that has high pricing power is able to increase its prices without losing customers. So that is obviously a good thing to do, right? We're seeing increases on the top line, increases in profitability. So any company that's able to really extract its pricing power in full is a great one as far as we're concerned.
Is there such thing as a price ceiling?
In certain markets there might well be. What we tend to see happen more often than not is a belief that the market price exists. And this is more of a perception, and honestly it's the kind of thing that holds some companies back from really pushing the boundaries on prices.
One size fits all for a lot of these, or no, not at all?
One size fits all rarely fits anybody perfectly, to be honest with you. It's the kind of packaging and pricing approach which works quite well in the infancy of a company, when honestly you probably don't know too much about your potential customers. You don't know really too much about which parts of your service, your product is the bit they'll really get a lot out of and get the value from. So it's not a bad way to start. You've got other things to focus on if you're building a business. As you become a more sophisticated business, you should offer a more sophisticated pricing and packaging overall.
So there's different life cycles of a company, they should approach this differently.
Absolutely, and I think as I said, as they get more sophisticated as a business, we tend to see more packages get offered to the market, I would say. We also see that more sophisticated pricing models should get offered to the market. So there's two ways in which we could do that over time.
And you discussed packaging. So can you unpack that and explain exactly what that means? Because people from an FMCG background may think of that differently from just an IoT.
Yeah. So as a package, we talk about the combination of all of the different features and service elements that come together to form effectively your single product and your offer to the market. That could be an individual product. When we have multiple products or multiple packages, that become a portfolio. So it's the packaging is the wrapping up of all the different features and services that you offer to the market. The portfolio is your, let's say, set of packages that you offer overall.
Okay, I guess many features that people offer can sometimes be cynically called fluff as well, but they often are needed just to bulk up the offering so that we can suggest a higher price. But what would be your advice about people thinking about doing that? Do they need to be careful about what sort of features they add in?
Sure. Too often companies include features within a package as filler because they can do something. And more often than not, that will have the effect of actually taking value out of a package. People believe they're paying for something that they don't want or don't need. And that actually can have a detrimental effect overall. We'd rather be in a position to say, these are the lead items that we must have leading each of our packages. We've got a number of fillers which are, some might be the hygiene factors, some might be kind of not quite the superstar products or services. Where we have items that we can do this, but honestly only one or two people will ever need it, I'd rather leave it out altogether and get people to buy it as an add-on.
So that old axiom of that's a great idea, but is it a business, should apply also to add-ons and features.
Absolutely. And I think what you offer to the market in terms of a product, your packages, your whole portfolio, add-ons, that is your business. And so if you don't apply the same rigor in designing these as you do to managing your accounts and managing your payroll, then I'm not really sure you have a business, because you're certainly not selling anything.
So let's discuss a little bit of the behavioural economics side of this, because it strikes me that the world we're coming from, and maybe going into, will be different, but the world we're coming from, the assumption was that if you want someone to pay for something, you're essentially disincentivizing them to do that thing, taxes and rent and etc. But that doesn't seem to be the case with subscriptions, so why the difference?
I think it's more than even subscriptions, to be honest with you. I think the mantra that we run on is value pricing, which is offering value to a customer, a consumer, another business, and charging, putting a price tag against that, which is appropriate for the value that you're delivering. Taxes and penalties are something a little bit different, I would say, overall. But I don't think it's necessarily just the subscription economy overall which would lend itself to that way of pricing.
Okay. People haven't changed though, so how are they actually approaching this? Do people desire subscriptions, or again, is this sort of a push thing that's coming from businesses?
Yeah, there's a little element of which technology is enabling this to happen, so companies could do something that they just couldn't do before. There weren't enough people to run to the post office every now and then to deliver those products and so on. Now I think there is maybe a bit of a trend, which is we'll try and subscriptionize everything. That's probably not the right answer, I would say. But certainly I think it's a thing that people are more used to now than they were 10 years ago, so therefore it's the kind of thing that we're going to just see more and more of. Not all of them will be perfect, not all of them will be right for a subscription model, but you'll have people who will be trying it with lots of strange and quirky different products and services.
Well, the natural question after that is this available to every sector, every company? Or are there a few that can do this and those who can't?
Yeah, I would say probably within every industry there's a way that you could find a subscription model to fit. There might be, say, better models that would work for certain industries than others. But I see no reason why it couldn't be something that could be explored in most businesses, to be honest with you, where you're effectively looking to build a recurring long-term relationship with a customer. Most businesses would say that that's what they're trying to do.
I wonder if there's a lot of boost, I suppose would be the word, that companies have had over the last 20, 30 years. That maybe once they start to shift into a model that may be necessary like this, they may discover actually that they're not very good at doing that business in the first place and may just fall to the wayside. Are we about to see a lot of market consolidation based on people who can do this well and suddenly those who can't?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the interesting insights today was that 50 years ago or so we had companies at the very top end of the scale with 75 years of time at the top. Now that's 15 years, and I wouldn't be surprised if we revisit this in another 5 years and people are only lasting 5 or so years at the very top. I'd imagine a lot more flux in what's happening at that upper end of the scale. There will be the ones though that have just got it right and have the scale at that point to be able to continue to kind of push boundaries and stay ahead. But I'm certainly not going to be the one to call for the demise of any of these superstars right now.
No, you'd be making a lot more money if you could predict like that. I wonder also if those who are thinking of perhaps moving into a model like this, how do they avoid scaring their customers who are used to the status quo, and change is hard?
Sure, yeah. So I think there will always be certain segments of your customer base, of your service and product offering that are more feasible to migrate early into this model. So we would probably think about those that are a better fit overall than trying to go big bang and do everything. The other thing is, before going live with this stuff and overnight it's new and different, to actually speak to your customers and get feedback from them. I think far too often we get businesses that are just afraid to talk to their customers. And sure, you'll get a bit of a skewed opinion here and there, but there are ways around that, let's say. But I think really getting a good understanding of what your customers want, their openness to change, and maybe what problem you are solving by making that change. If you're just doing it because it sounds different and it's the cool pricing model of the year, I would kind of question your motives again.
And finally, I suppose the fact is, people are a series of buttons and levers, and if you know how to pull and push them in the right order, you can get them to do anything. And I suppose with the amount of data we have and different pricing models available, it doesn't take quite a lot of genius to figure this stuff out. But what would be your advice for somebody approaching this?
Maybe another point on the amount of data available and so on. We're going to go through, or we have gone through a time in the last 5 years when people have been very comfortable handing over data as the new currency, and that's fine. We don't pay in dollars anymore. We pay in knowing when my birthday is and so on. We're going to see a bit of a change in that, probably a bit of a pause in that for the next couple of years, but that will probably be a thing that continues in the future. There'll be some different regulation in place to control that. So that's kind of one part, I would say. Going forward, I think in terms of how easy this is to do or how available this is to do to different companies, I think we'll see more and more expertise within firms, where we have had sales and marketing and where we've had finance functions for a long time. We're increasingly building in commercial roles that have an overview of go-to-market, an overview of pricing, an overview of how, not just what our sales numbers are, but how do we motivate and incentivize sales in the right way. So I think a lot of that coming in-house will be a thing as well. So real increase in the expertise in companies, I think.